Yo, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up?
What's up? All right, so I'm Joe Gattone. This is Brian Potesta. We're both realtors on the same team, and we wanted to talk through a couple things. Brian recently had a situation with his clients. He was able to help them. So I want him to talk about that. We're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about where we see the market going in 2022 and maybe even 2023. And then I wanted to discuss the private network and how that can help navigate this real estate market that we're in. So yeah, Bryce. So you just posted this on your Instagram story the other day. So I don't know if you want to maybe
Yeah, yeah,
into that situation.
yeah. So I talked about this. So anybody that's following my Insta stories, they already kind of know about this. But for anybody else that hasn't, I had a client. They wanted to sell their house and move because the house that they bought, they've just outgrown it, and it really wasn't functional for them anymore. So they were wanting to get it done, but they were getting a little bit nervous that there was no inventory on the market, and so they were hesitant to go active. So, we were in talks about putting a strategy forward. A house popped up that they were in love with, and they wanted to go see it. So we went. We looked at it that day. They said that it was the right house for them. They wanted it. They submitted an offer, or we submitted an offer later on that afternoon, but it had a home sale contingency because they were not currently active on their house. And the seller expressed an urgency to want to offload this house as quickly as possible. He didn't really have the time to wait for us to get our house active and sold. And so he wasn't very excited about the offer because it had only been on the market 2 days. So we gave him an additional offer, came up a little bit on the offer price, thinking that we would get the deal done. And they still were apprehensive because they didn't want to wait for us to sell our house. Now, again, if a house has been sitting 6 months, people will be a little bit more inclined to do that. But when it's a brand new listing like this one was, and it was newly updated,
I remember
um,
talking to you about it too. Like we looked at comps and we were kind of like, man, this is like it's kind of priced a little bit high. Like, are they sure? And you talked with your clients and made sure that they understood that. And they're
yep,
like, well, we got to do what we got to do to try to get it because we have.
yeah, and they were willing. Yeah, they were willing to do it. They said, "Look, let's just offer them more money, see if they bite at it." And they came back and said, "Well, we have an open house this weekend on Sunday, so before we respond to your offer, we would like to see what happens with this open house." And that's when we were like, "Hold on a second, no, that's not how this works." Exactly. We want an answer to the offer. We've given you a strong offer. We're not going to wait for you to go dip your toes in the water and test the market here. We want an offer or a response to ours before you do that. Anyways, if they needed to answer us right away, it was no. So we were flat out rejected on that. So same thing happened. They found another house popped up shortly after that and had the exact same experience where we offered them a pretty strong offer with a home sale contingency. They said no. I'm sorry, they went with another offer. It was a multiple offer scenario. And
Twice basically.
exactly, that deal fell apart. They came back at us. And at that time, we had gotten active on the market, got our house under contract. So when they came back and said, "Hey, look, our deal fell apart. Are you still interested in this house?" The answer is yes, but we're not offering what we were offering before because now we're ready. We're ready to close in 30 days now. So this is our offer. So we ended up going under contract 25. I believe it was $25,000 less than what our previous offer was.
Yeah,
So
and that was pretty good at the price point you guys were at. Like you weren't up in the millions, right? Because 25,000 in the millions is like not a huge deal. You guys were what, like 300?
correct, correct. We were like in the mid 300s. So yeah, 25,000. 25,000 is a kitchen and a bathroom, like, yeah.
All right, so that was I think the what I was picking up from that is like sometimes it's hard because you have to take a leap of faith and you're not seeing anything that you want available right now, but you have to list your property. And so then it's like, well, what if you don't find the house that you want, right? So we'll get into that with the private network a little bit later. But I think that they were also kind of under the gun with the interest rate thing, right? Because they were thinking interest rates were going to go up, and
Yeah, the Fed's raising rates 3 times throughout the year, so we know that that's going to have an impact on the mortgage interest rates and everything like that.
thing in your
Um,
story that I thought was good was you put some of those screenshots like right before you told the story.
yeah,
And one of the screenshots said, it was talking about the Fed rates, right? So like buyers are feeling this pressure. I think it was what you posted was really good because it's totally true. Buyers are feeling the pressure. They need to find a house. They need to buy something because the interest rates are going to go up. They've told us this. And so nobody wants to be locked in at a higher interest rate, especially on a 30-year thing. So they're trying to find a place ASAP, but there's just no inventory on the market. And then I wanted to dispel a couple of these rumors. And hold on, real quick, before we get to that, the interest rate thing. So every 1% that the interest rate goes up, you lose about 10% of your buying power, which means the monthly payment that is impacted by a 1% increase in rates, that same difference would be in like a 10% more on the house purchase. So we were using like a $500,000 example. If the rate went from 4% to 5%, the monthly payment difference is the same as if the house went from 500 to 550, right? Or if you wanted to try to keep your monthly payment the same as it was with that lower rate at 4%, once it jumps to 5%, that $500,000 house now needs to be all the way down to 450 in order for that payment to stay the same as it used to be. So 1% increase in rate equals 10% difference in buying power. And so I think also, like, again, maybe buyers don't really understand that much, but now that they do and they're feeling that pressure, they're trying to rush to get out there, and then inventory is just not there. So like,
Well, and just to touch on that real quick, we can dive into the numbers a little later, but to have a 10% swing in value and appreciation or depreciation, should the market take a turn for the worse, which there's currently no indicators pointing towards that, but to have a 10% swing in a home value is a pretty substantial swing. So on average, you see like a 1 to 3% swing. So right now, we've seen kind of like unprecedented appreciation in home values, but that's not the norm.
this is a
So,
good example, right? So if the rates go up by a percentage point, so just in the last year, I'm looking at stats right now. So year over year stats, it's an average of the last 12 months. The market has gone up by 12% from 2021's right now, January of 2021 to January 2022. The market's gone up 12%. So
and then norm is like 1 to 3, maybe 4 or 5%, not 10 to 12, 13. Yeah,
crazy increase. And if the rates go up by 1%, we would also have to see just as crazy of a decrease. And that
correct.
is not going to happen, at least not yet, because the same thing happened from 2019 to 2020. We saw a huge increase, and then also again in 2021, even more so. And if you look at the month supply, it's just not over yet, dude. Like, there's too many people out there that want houses. So the average supply right now of inventory is 2.5 months, 2.6. So if there were no new listings, the same rate that people have been buying houses over the past 12 months, at that same rate, everything that's on the market right now would only last 2.5 months, and then there would be no houses for sale. That is down 38% from a year ago, which is crazy, dude. So the inventory is so low, even though we've seen record numbers of transactions. So, like, so I was talking to my Aunt Val yesterday. Sorry to put her on blast here, but she's like, how come nobody's selling? Like, I thought everyone was leaving Illinois, and I'm like, no, everyone is selling. Like, there's a lot of people selling more than ever before in a year in the last 2 years, but there's also just as many people buying, so there's just nothing left.
Yeah, everybody that's selling has to go buy something else. Yeah,
So yeah, it's not that transactions aren't happening. It's just that the number of them is so high that there's no houses to be sold. And so
yeah.
I don't see it going down. Like, everyone's, I don't know if you're hearing, like, or reading articles that are like, market's going to crash, we can't sustain this is crazy. And
Every trend that or every article that I've read is trending in the same direction. All the finance people, all the real estate gurus, all the publications that I've been reading are indicating that we're going to continue this trend through the next 12 months at least, where home values are continuing to appreciate up and up and up. They know that interest rates are going to creep up, which that's going to kind of calm that market a little bit, I think. But yeah, there's still so many buyers out there. So when a house comes up on the market that's nice and it's updated and it's priced right, buyers are still jumping on them.
yeah, so to kind of wrap this up for people, to help them, because if somebody's out there trying to wait and time this market thinking that it's going to come down, you might be waiting like way more than a year, I think. Okay, so to sum that up, um, you know, like we had a listing in Grays Lake, same thing. There was 35 showings right over the weekend. We timed it perfect. We listed like late Thursday. And so we had tons of showings Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were at 375, ended up with a $400,000 cash offer Friday, canceled
Nice.
everything. But there's no way that all 30 of those people, 35 of those people that didn't even get to see the house and put in an offer have,
Are no longer looking.
this was just in January, like
Yeah.
17 days ago, right?
Yeah.
30 days ago. So there's no way those people have purchased already. And I think that's what people need to realize is that there's got to be another 30 houses and that price point that look like that. There's room for 30 houses that look just like that to sell before the market runs dry. And so I
Right.
think we're just not quite done with this bull market here. People still want to move, and they're not just doing it as an investment. They're not just like, oh, let's sell because we can sell. Like people are selling because they need to move. They want a lifestyle change. It's a good time for them to sell.
Yep.
They're like, all right, we were going to wait, but let's just do it now. But we wanted
Yeah.
to do this. We're not doing this just to cash in on our investment, right? And people aren't just buying real estate because they're like, oh, it's going to go up. They're buying because they need a bigger house, they need another bedroom, they had a job change or whatever it is. People are just moving. And
Yep.
so I think the investment piece is like, it's on the side. People consider that they're being careful about it still, even though they have to pay more money. They're still making sure that they're not paying too much more, right? And this is how the market goes up. Like this is, you got to pay more than the last guy.
Yeah, and to that point, people are sitting on pretty good equity in their homes that have been in their homes for a while.
Right.
So for them, it's a good time to sell because they can capitalize on that. And then also they know that rates are going to creep up over the course of the next 12 months. So it's also a pretty good time to buy. So how do we balance the how do we balance the playing field back into the buyer's favor? Because we know that this is pretty heavily favoring the seller right now. So why don't we talk about like the PLN
Yeah, so
and how we can
the
balance
private network stuff. So we had clients last year that weren't really planning on moving, but they wanted to, right? And I think you and Katie were kind of in this situation. Your clients you just talked about were in this situation. Like, you want to sell, you don't have to sell. The more important thing is the next house. We want to make sure we find the right one, and we don't need to move, right? So there's no like panic, and we don't want to just buy something to buy something. And so the private network is really, and I did a podcast on this before, but the private network is really the way to go, I think, for a lot of people. The only downside to the private network, okay, is you're not getting exposed. I'm telling you this so other people can hear, but I know you know this. You're not getting exposed as much, right? So the property is not going to realtor.com, it's not going to Zillow, it's not going to any brokerage's website. Like, it's only on the MLS. There, like, Compass will allow private listings to be seen by the public on their website that's listed by Compass. Compass
Mhm.
doesn't have all the private listings, right? So you're not going to get everything on Compass's website. And some other brokerages may be doing that same thing where their listings that are private are on their website. But again,
Yep.
you're not getting all the brokerages stuff. So the only way to see them all is through the MLS. And agents have the ability to search the private network separately from the rest of the properties that are available to everyone. So the exposure is the downside. And when the private network was new, it was a big downside because like even agents weren't really tapping into that. There wasn't, the inventory wasn't as low, so there wasn't as much of a need for it. Because why am I going to go search for this house that, you know, maybe it's priced too high, or I don't even know what it looks like. There's no pictures. I don't know the tax, but like this is just a waste of time, right? Let's just go look at these
Yeah.
40 properties that are available and
Sure.
pick one. But
Sure.
now, as inventory has gone down and as the private network has been around for a while, agents they've started to use this quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so that
So
only,
here's a hypothetical for my,
yeah,
like
sure.
my client, for example. We're ready to sell our. I'm sorry, we're ready to move, but there's not much out there. There's nothing exciting us that we want to move on right now. We may not have our house ready for showings yet. We might not have it ready for photography. The private network is a good avenue for us to reach at this stage of the game. So what you do is you can get your house privately listed, gets it out there so there's realtors' eyes on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can post that listing with one or two photos, clean up your kitchen, your nice updated kitchen, showcase that with a nice photo, show the front of the house with a nice photo, and that's it. So we can get eyes on the property. We're not accruing days on the market.
That's the big thing. So that was the advantage to the private network is there's no history. There is history for agents, but it's not public.
Yep.
So
So if we're on the private 6 months, it doesn't show that we've been sitting 6 months. Like if we were active, then people would say, "Well, this house has been sitting 6 months. Let's lowball this offer."
right. And even with
So we
agents,
can
they
get
might think that, right? They might be like, well, why is this sitting for 6 months? But the answer is, well, we're privately listed, right? We just like there's a really
yep,
easy way to write that off where there's no
testing the
negative
waters.
stigma, right? There's no negative stigma as if you were active. It's like, why haven't you sold? You're clearly priced too high or there's something wrong with
Yep.
the house, you know?
So we get eyes on the property. We're not accruing days on the market. We can schedule out showings as at our convenience. So if somebody calls us and says, "Hey, we saw that you're on the private. We'd like to come see the property. We're interested in it. When can we get in and see it?" I could talk to the clients and say, "Hey, what's the best that you can do to get that thing show ready?" And they might say 2 weeks. Great. It's going to be 2 weeks. All right, perfect. So 2 weeks from now, you know what I mean? So
Right.
at the
There's no
drop of a
pressure.
hat, they don't have to show their house. They don't have to show it 10 times a day or 30 times over the weekend.
Right.
Um, and then that also buys them time to find something else.
Well, and you also have this threat, this dangling threat of publicly listing, right? So somebody comes in, they don't want to give you your price or they want to close fast. It's like, well, we don't need to move, right? So we want this price. We want at least 60 days. Also, like our main goal is to find the next house. So we're looking for a buyer who can give us that time. And there are enough buyers out there where one or two of them are going to say, look, we're renting from my parents. So like we don't care if we close in 30 days. We don't care if we close in 90 days, 6 months. Like, we just don't want you to list it somewhere else. Like, don't let
For sure.
anyone else see it. Let's lock it down and we'll give you guys time to find a place. And so then you can go try to shop. And if they end up walking away, again, there's no negative stigma because this wasn't under contract publicly. And so, when something goes under contract and then comes back on and is reactivated, all of a sudden people are like, what's wrong with the property? Why did they cancel? And there's all this like negative assumptions that happen. There's
Yeah.
none of that on the private network. So I just feel like the advantages to it completely outweigh the disadvantage, which is the lack of exposure. And even
Yeah.
now, I would argue that it's almost just as exposed
Yeah.
because agents are looking, inventory is low. We can also send these private listings to our clients from the MLS now. So it's like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
being
So the
sent out as
private,
regular listings.
yeah. For all those reasons that we just talked about, a lot of those favor the seller, right? So it gives them time to get something else pop up, all those things.
Sure.
They
So
don't
you
have to show it
you're
at the
trying
drop
to
of
help
a hat.
you're trying to help
But
buyers figure this out.
yeah, because that's honestly that's what most people that reach out to me, that's their concern, is they're
Yeah,
concerned about the low inventory. So it also works on the other side of that token. So it helps me if I'm trying to sell this house. It helps me because we can get eyes on the property sooner, not accrue days on the market, XYZ reasons. Um, but also because it's not active, it's just privately listed. That buyer can come in and say, "Don't go active. There's nothing out there. We want to buy this house.
right.
Don't go active. We'll give you this." So that's favoring them also.
Well,
If it,
especially if they have a
yeah,
house to sell, right? Because you can
exactly,
say, look, you're on
exactly.
the
So
private, so just take our offer, go under
yep,
contract. There's nothing changes for the seller in that scenario. You're under
and
contract.
the status doesn't change.
Right. Now the buyer can go list their house on the market to get it
Yep.
sold. Right. So now they can come
And
back and say, all right, now we're just home close. Let's get this thing done.
totally. So be on the buy side, if you're able to provide somebody like that with the flexibility that they need,
Hmm.
that's how you're balancing the scales back.
Right.
Because you may not be able to come in and offer them 75K over asking price, which the next guy might be able to. But if you're able to provide them with terms like a 60-day closing, which is what they're looking for because they still haven't found their next house,
Exactly.
it's all the flexibility and the terms that suit the seller. That's how the buyer gets an advantage.
Right. And I think that's just it ends up just being like working together. So the seller needs something, the buyers need something, right? If you
Yeah.
can take advantage of listings that are on the private network as a buyer, understanding that there's not going to be negative stigma for the seller to go under contract or and you're going to have to give them their price and all that stuff, but that's what you want, right? You just don't want to fight somebody else. So give them what they want. Try to give away the stuff that you can give away. We'll get into more about how you could maybe win an offer and be more advantageous as a buyer, but I think
Yeah.
that kind of sums up what we wanted to talk about as far as interest rates in the market and where it's going, man. So
Yeah.
we'll get this out to you guys. Let us know if there's something you want us to talk about. We'll definitely do the research for you and hit up some information on the things you guys need. So
All
until
right.
next
Cool.
time. All right, man.
All
Later.
right. Later.